So again, now we'll go back to our form that we got from our use form hook, okay? And this time we'll access a new property in it, which is an object called form state. This form state itself contains a lot of things, okay? But at the moment, we just need one property, which is called error. Errors equal form state. Okay, now let's cancel this error so we see how the structure looks like. So cancel log errors. So the error is giving us now an empty object. Now let's try to submit. So we have the validation for all the fields and we see the structure of the errors object, how it looks like. Submit. So how it looks like is that it's structures into field names. So as you can see, we have the name, which is the field name of the first one right here in the lane 22. Then the second one is email, which is this one here. And then you have the age, which is right there. Okay. And you can see we are getting here few things. So we have message, age is required. So we have errors here basically. Okay. If I try to fill these ones, 22 test@gmail.com, and we tick this one too. Let's do submit. And you will see here we're getting empty, which means we don't have any errors. So how we can access and we know that we have problems within our fields? If the field name exists within our error object, then there is an error. If it doesn't exist, then there is no error. Okay, so what I will do here, I'll come right here, and what I will do, I'll just paste this. So I'll say if I have errors dot name. Okay, if that exists, error.name, that means I have an error. I want to display errors.name.message. Okay, as you can see here, we have the message in here. Okay, I'll do the same thing for others too. All good. So as you can see, we forgot also one thing. We didn't add a verification or validation for the checkbox. So I'll keep it actually like that. I want to have the option to be valid or not valid. So I'll save this. Let's hard refresh again. And we should see the errors now when we click submit. So you can see here, the p texts are coming. As I start typing, that should go away. Okay. Now here, let's do something less than 16. So if I do 11, then I get a different error. If I remove 11, then I have age is required. Let's put 20, then my error is gone because my field is valid. Same for email. First you have please enter an email because that's a required validation. If I start typing, it should show a different one. Let me type, please enter a valid email address. Now because you have something in your field, it's trying to figure out does it follow the standard of an email address. So if I do this and this, then my error will just go away. Okay, and let's click submit, and then you can see my form is submitted, and that is my data in my form retrieved successfully. So you can see, to do a validation for your fields and getting errors and display them, very straightforward, very less work from your side, less coding. All what you have done is that we just extract an object from our use form hook, which called form states, and this one we'll use later for many other things. But that object itself holds something called errors in it. Okay, an object, our property called errors, and through that we can access all our form errors that we have without have to track anything by itself. Okay, and all the time it's available for you either within your submit or when you do on change functionality for your input fields. Okay, now let's move to a more fun part and let's see how we can add our custom validation. Okay, and let's take an example for the email. Okay, let's say for example you want anyone to be able to create an account or log in or whatever using an email, but you don't want to allow certain email to be used. Okay, let's say for example you don't want info@mycompany.com to be used. Okay, how I can run validation within my field that will check for me first if the field is there empty or not, if it does follow the standard for my email, and I want it also to check for me that the email entered does not follow or is not same as this email I entered now. So we can add our custom validation. I will go to my email field, and here we got required, we got pattern. We can add an extra field called validate. Okay, and that's validate either accept a function if you want to run one more custom validation, or it can be an object of functions. So if you say, let's say you want to run more other validations, okay, things can get tricky in real time, to be honest. So sometimes it's just straightforward validation, sometimes you have many validations, and for each one you want to display a different messaging. Okay, so let's start with the first example, which is one custom validation. So that will be a function itself, and that function by default accepts the field value. Okay, input value. So this function, what it does, it returns true if it's valid, otherwise it's not valid. Okay, so I'll say, okay, it return if the field, if the input value is different than this email, okay, then good. Otherwise, I want to display this error message. Please enter a different email. Oops, let me call this one a different email. And this can be even very helpful. For example, let's say a user creates an account. I want to compare this email address even to a list of email address in my backends, right? So this is a validation you can run. Let me save this. And let me go back to my browser. Let me open also this one here. Okay, so you can see here, that's my email. I will do actually, I'll refresh. And now it's pick up the error. It's saying email and error type is validate, okay, because it's coming from this validate field. And it's saying please enter a different email, and then this is your value. As soon as I change it to something else, then I'm good. Okay, I'm all good, all green, all clear. Okay, now let's see how you can do multiple custom validations. Okay, I will copy this, and then I'll make my validate property as an object. Okay, and let's call the first one, for example, not info. Okay, email. Okay, that's my first validation, and this is the function assigned to it. Okay, then I can add something else. I don't know, let's say for example you don't support Hotmail emails, for example. Okay, you can add something called not Hotmail email. Okay, and again you'll do the same thing, only here the comparison will be different. Okay, so you'll say that my field value, okay, does not end with and ends with, and I'll say hotmail.com, for example, and I'll just add here. So as long as my email doesn't end with hotmail.com, I'm happy. Okay, I'll save, and let's add here hotmail.com and say again please enter a different email. I'll just change this messaging. I'll say we don't support Hotmail address, please use different email. Okay, let's save, and let's click now here and try to do again .com, and you see here, oh, I did a spelling mistake. Nice. Okay, so let's just type here, so let's pick up the new message. So we don't support Hotmail address, please use different email, and same thing here, and you can see the error type is not Hotmail email. Okay, and now let's again type the other one we did before. I'll say info@mycompany.com. Okay, now again saying please enter a different email. So we have a different address, different message for this validation, And you can see my dev tool again is picking up what is the error type. This time is not required, is not pattern, it's just we want a different email. Okay, so that's enough, I think, for validation, custom validation, because this video is more about getting our head around React from hook from the beginning to the end. I will have later in series more advanced videos for each and every topic separately. Now let's handle a scenario again of error handling, but this time is not related to each field itself. But let's say, for example, you got your data in the form, all is good, all is happy, then you click submit. Okay, and when you click submit, you have an API call made to the backend, but let's say for some reason your backend is not happy with the details. Okay, maybe some validation in the backend, something. So this API comes back with an error. So how you can handle or display this error or access it to your users? So we can go back again. First, we need a function that can help us to set this error and access it. So we go back to the form that we get from our use form again, and it gives us another method or another property called set error. Okay, and what we can do here on our submit function, let's for example mock an API call. And let's say I want this one for me to throw an error, and for me, because I already created one, and I give it an option for me, basically it's not real API, it's just a way to mock an API call, and I give it 2 seconds to give me a response. Okay, so here to reject, I'm giving a property when to reject, when to not. So I want it actually to reject, I will say true, which means it throw an error for me. So what I want when that happens, I want to set error. Okay, and I'll say this error should belong to the root, or root means root for your application. Then I'll have an object, and that object I can pass any message I want. So I'll just say message, and in the message I'll just add for now a custom message, but you can read it out from your API and pass it down to your message property. So I'll just say error occurred, please try again. Okay, and let me fix the spelling mistake and save. And what I will do to access that, same what we did before for other fields, now we'll do the same thing, but we'll access the root. So I'll go enter my submit button for now. I'll just say if errors.root exists, then I want to access my errors.root.message. Save, clean up my console, and let's click submit. And you can see here error occurred, please try again. Okay, so very easy way, very simple way you can access and handle your generic errors that comes back from your API response, or any other way you want. But these errors are only special to the whole form, not only to the field itself. Let's move to some more fun part, and let's see how we can set up our default values. First thing, we look at standard static default values. Then we'll see also how we can do asynchronous setting default values. Means you have to make some call to some API, retrieve data, and then set that data as default values within your fields. Okay, let's get started. So first things first is that we can go inside our use form, and this use form until now we didn't pass any parameters or arguments. So what I will do, I will pass now one object, okay, and that object will have something called default values, and Visual Studio Code will already helping me out to fill this, and I'll just click that. And the default values will be an object, and this object will contain properties of your input names. Okay, so let's start. So our first input name is name, so I'll just put name. I'll just say Lulu, and I'll say my second one is my age. I'll just say I'm 18, and I will say my email is for now test@gmail.com. Okay, that's it. Okay, let's just save this, and then let's refresh our browser, and you can see my fields have been pre-filled. Very easy, very straightforward. Now little bit more fun part where we can get these values from an API call. So how we can do that? And this API call needs to be async. Lucky for us, the React hook form handle all that stuff by itself. So we go back to our default values, and instead of returning an object or have an object immediately, we will have a function, an async function. So async and a function here. Inside my default values async function, I will create my API call. Okay, so say const response is await fetch my API. Okay, then I'll say const data equal await for my response to come back. Okay, then transform it to a JSON. Okay, then I'll come back here. I'll say return for me an object, and I know I will only access the name and the email, so those are the one I'm going to set by default. So I want to set my name here to my data.name, so data.name, and I want to set my email field, which also name is email. Okay, so I'll go back, the email field to data dot, and the property name in my data is also email. Okay, so I'm showing you the difference every time I'm talking, so you know which email property I'm talking about. Now let's save this and let's look at our browser. Let's hard refresh, and you can see, boom, there we go. I got my name pre-filled and also my email address pre-filled. Okay, so you can see setting up default values either with hard-coded way or even by calling an API itself is very easy and very straightforward using React hook form. And maybe because this one upload to GitHub for you as a source if you want to play around. Let me also hard code this time. So this one is hard coded. I would say 18. So you have different combination. One is coming from the API and one is just hard coded. I'll save this and let me hard refresh, and there we go. All is pre-filled for us. So I think for a start course for React from home, this is very enough. There are much more advanced topics which I don't want to throw everything on you at the moment, but this is a really good start. Please look for other videos that will come in my channel, which I'll go and deep dive in each and every topic whenever it comes to the state management or validations or submissions, everything together. Okay, so I'll stop right here for this video and just move to the next topic, which is Zod, and how we can use Zod to help us manage our validation in much more easier way, even than the current one we are doing. Okay, so first things first is that we need to install a couple of packages that they will help us to use Zod, and the first of them is the hooks form, which can help us to get some resolvers that will help us to hook Zod to our application. Okay, so I will just go and copy this, npm install, go to my terminal, and I'll just open new terminal here, and I'll say npm install hook form / resolver installer. So I'll go here, that's finished for me, the resolver. Then I'll just do npm install Zod and hit enter. So that was very quick, that's installed. Then now I'll just go make sure that's all installed, my package.json. So I can see here my resolver, it's right here, and I can see the Zod here installed as well. Great. Now let's go back to our component itself, and let's go and import our Zod. So import z from Zod, and then what we have to do is that first we have to make a schema, which was really scary for me in the beginning whenever I hear schema. I don't know why, but it's very simple, it's very straightforward. So all what we do is just create a constant, call it anything you want. I'll call it schema, and this one will be equal to a z, which is Zod dot object. Okay, and this object accepts an argument, which is an object, and can have properties which are your field names. Okay, as many fields you have. Now what I will do for this today video, I'll just keep it simple to not overwhelm you. But again, you can look out for my channel. If it's not now, maybe later, you'll find a full tutorial about Zod and how you can run validations with it. So first thing, I'll just do my email validation first, okay? And remember before, as we use pattern to check if the email is actually follow the structure of an email. So something, at, then something, the dot, then whatever after that dot. So now with Zod, we don't have to do that. All we have to do is just say z.string.email. That's it. It will run, it have all this built-in functionality behind the scene that will run all the necessary validations for an email. Okay. Let's do also, for example, for the name. So name, and let's say z.string. And all what I want to do is have a minimum of character. Okay. So let's say minimum character is 3. You can't enter less than 3. Now, so we created our schema. That's the first step. The second step is that hook to that schema to our form. So how we can do that? We can go to the use form hook we did before. And remember, as we added an object which contained default values, we can add something else inside this object which called resolvers. Okay. And this resolver, we need to pass a Zod resolver. Okay, so let's import Zod resolver. Import Zod resolver. Zod resolver from our add hook form dot resolvers slash Zod, because having a resolvers, we only need the Zod resolver. Now we'll go back here to our use form and we'll trigger that. So Zod resolver, Zod resolver, and doesn't accept one parameter, which is your schema. That's it. That's all what you have to do. So this way, what you're doing, you create a schema, you add these fields names, you hook them to whatever validations built in Zod, then you take that schema and you just plug it in your form within use form hook using something called resolver. So resolver is like a bridge which connects between your schema and your form and run all these validations behind. Okay, now let's see if this is working. We go first to our input field, and remember we just had validation to be required. I'll remove that because now it is required, and also there's a minimum value. We don't need that anymore. And let's go to our email and we'll remove this pattern validation we did. Okay, let's click save. Now let's go here, just hard refresh, and let's see. First thing I will do is just to break the email, then also break this, and let's try clicking submit. Okay, so first thing is complain about email. So I can do add, but see, even add, it says it needs some parts following add. Okay, then I would say Hotmail, which it will not allow, or just hot and .com. Okay, now let's click submit. So as I click submit, then the first one is running. Okay, so it says string must contain at least 3 characters, and that's because of this schema we created here, and we set the name that I'm expecting minimum of 3 characters. So if I add another character, it's all good. I click submit, and then all is happy. This one just because of a previous demo we did where we triggered an error right there. Okay, now let's start our unit test, but I think just before that, let's tackle one more extra thing that we can get from the React hook form. Before we handled the error handling, when we click submit and let's an error happened, we access something called set error from our form state, so it can help us to set an error to our root for our form. But we didn't see the happy part when we have a successful submission, how we can access that value to know when my form is successful. Same thing is also very simple and very easy. The form state we get from our form, it gives us another property which is a boolean, and it's called is submitted, submit successful. Okay, and that will be true if my submission is done and the form is happy, and to be false if I click submit and error happen, for example. Okay, so I'll just copy that boolean, simple as that, and I'll display a message to users when my submission is successful. And same thing we did with the error. I'll just say if submitted is successful, then display a message, form being submitted. And I'll just add some basic styling. I'll just copy this one, paste it, change the color to green. And by the way, I'm just using Taiwan CSS to make it easy for me, and with a bit bigger text. Save. Now let's go back up. I think I had an alert message. I'll just remove that now because I'm displaying actual message. Save. Now let's test it. So our fields are already pre-filled, if you remember, from an API call. And I'll go and click submit, and you can see form being submitted. Okay, which is great. Now let's see how you can add one more thing. Let's say, for example, when you click submit and you have a loader or spin on your screen, or even you disable your submit button, for example. Okay, so how you can do that, how you can access that state value. Also, same things, very simple. The form state gives us again another property called is submitting. So if you're saying like a loading, okay, but of course your form is not loading, you are submitting. Okay, so while the form is doing something, you can have access to this boolean to know when it's true and when it's false. And what I will do for now, I'll just disable my button when I click submit. So disabled, and it should be true when it is submitting. Okay, and what I will say here, I'll just add an extra class disabled. I'll say BG gray 400, for example, so you can see the color changing. Okay, now let's hard refresh. I'll click submit, and because it's instant, I can't see the difference. Let me put a timer on it. Okay, so what I have done quickly is that I just went to my submitted function. I removed everything else because we just cancel logs and alerts, and all what I have done is just run a promise and set a time after 4 seconds so we can see the behavior happening. And what it does after 4 seconds, it just resolves my promise. It's like I'm triggering an API, and that API took 4 seconds. Okay, and I cancel log that is submitting, so you can see. So now it is false. I'll just refresh actually everything, so you can see it's false. What I will do, I click submit, and you see it's grayed out, and all is true. And 4 seconds finished, I get false, and my button is active again. Okay, so this is great. Now I removed my console log, all is good. Now let's go to our unit test. So what I have done, I just created a test file in the same root of my component I want to test. And let's do some basic testing, and I want you to, by the end of this video, you try by yourself. I'll upload this source code up in GitHub, and you can try other scenarios. I'll do the happy path, and I'll leave the validation part for you to try and play around. So I'll go here. So first things first is that I need to import the testing libraries. Okay, so I'll say import render, and this one will help me to render, or how to say, not actually render, but just a mock render of my component, so I can access it. I have screen, it's like your window thing, and then you have fire event. Okay, and this one will help you to fire events on your input fields, like in your input field for typing or on clicking a button. This one will help you to do so. And then we need something called wait for, and you'll see what we need it for as well. From add testing library / react. Okay, great. Now next thing is that we need to import the component that we need to test. So I say import from easy from the same root. Great. Now I will go and create my test scenarios. So I'll say test. I'll say my first one will be render the easy form and submit with valid data. So I'm doing the happy path here. Okay, And because we have async calls in the way, so this one will be an async. And then here we can write our tests, okay? So first thing, of course, I need to render my component, so I'll use render. And I'll call my component form easy. Okay, so here I'm just mocking the render of my components. Now, second thing is that I said I want to do happy path, so I need to fill the fields in my mock render, okay? So we'll use fire event. So how we can do that? We do fire event dot input, and we'll go say screen dot get element, or no, get by placeholder text. Okay, so you can, if we go back to our components, we have here placeholders. Okay, so we're finding inputs in our screen by their placeholders. Okay, and I'll copy the first one I'm doing and I'll paste it here. So all what I'm doing is that I'm finding event on an input field which have a placeholder text with enter your name. That's it. Okay, now the second thing I need to do is pass the mock value. Okay, so an object, and that object have target. Okay, and that target will have value, and whatever mock value you want to do. I'll say my name, for example. That's it. So here what we have done is just we took an input field and we put my name in it, which is my name. Okay, or just call it Lulu. Now the other same thing we have to do for other ones. So what I will do, I'll just copy these and I'll replace. Easy peasy. So now we filled our required fields. If you remember, this one it's not required, so I don't have to do it. Now we have to simulate the click on our submit button. So also same thing, so fire event, but this time not dot input, it's dot submit. Okay, then we'll just say screen get by role, and this time it will be button, because we know it is a button. That is the role of my submit. And now what we did here, we are finding the event on submit button. So what we want to do now, when we click submit button, my validation is happy. I want to check if my screen have this text on it. Okay, but remember our submit button is async call. Okay, so we have to do something like this, wait for. So you wait for a call to be finished, and that one is async, so we need to be preceded with a wait. Okay, so a wait for, and that F I should make it capital. Oops, wait for, and that will be an arrow function, and then inside there you'll do the test that you want to test. Okay, so I expect that screen this time dot get by text. Okay, so I want to find element by text this time, and whatever text I put here. So I'll just copy this one and paste it there. Okay, and I want this text to be, okay, I need an exclamation mark. I want this text to be in the document, to be in the document. Okay, great. So I feel like my test is right. I'm filling everything I need. So I'll just go to my terminal and I'll run the test. So npm run test. And why I'm doing that, because in my package.json I have a script called test which runs just test for me behind the scene. Okay, so npm run test, hit enter, and let's see what this will do for me. Let's make this one smaller, also move this here, and let's keep our test big. So it's failing. Then why it's failing? Okay, it's complaining somewhere here with the wait for event. Let's go up. Unable to find element. Okay, it's not finding the element. Okay, so saying fetch is not defined. Okay, and let's go back to our code, And you remember when we filled the default values, we're calling action API to fill it. So I'll go up there. So here it is. So our React component knows about it, but our mock test doesn't know about it. So we have to mock this fetch call. So how we can do that in unit test, I'll show you, and to be like a, you can use this as a service within your real-time projects as well. So I will create a mock fetch call. Okay, so my mock fetch call is expecting data and always doing just resolving my promise. And then what I will do, I'll create a mock JSON with the response that I'm expecting. And all what I have done is just whatever response I will get back from this API itself. If you remember, I'll click this. I just copy that one and I put it as a mock JSON basically. Now I can go inside my test and mock my call, okay? And the way you'll do that, I'll just attach the window.fetch to my new mock fetch function that I created, and I pass it the JSON response that I want to see. Okay, so I save that, and let me see if my test passes. So I have to scroll down. Okay, so it's still failing, and let me read why now. Let's go back up. So it's saying I'm unable to find an element with the text form being submitted. So it's not finding my text for some reason, and you can see here it's returning for me whatever the DOM element is finding. The thing is that when you have an async function and you have to wait for some button to be clicked and all that stuff, so even the fire events themselves, they need to be wrapped within the wait for. Okay, you can't put these outside here, okay, and only put the expected one inside. That will not work. So you have to keep them inside your wait for, just like this. I click save now, and I will just go and look at my test run. And there we go. You can see our component tests have been passed. It still complains for something about using an old version of Act, but I'm not using. So maybe I think it's just like an error reminder to not use the import of Act from the test utils, because that's how we used to do it. But with the new versions and updates, now you import it from React. But I'm not using it either way, so it's all good. All what I can care is that my test has been passed. I will upload this code to GitHub for you to can play around. Please feel free to add your own tests to handle, you know, the validation and no happy paths, okay, and see how you go with that.